So I figured I'd tell you a little bit about daddy's side of the family. So dad is adopted, which means that my biological birth parents gave me up at birth. Because so I was born in 1990 to Lita and Donald Baldry or Joe Com. I'm not sure on what both their names were, or even if they got married. But anyway, I was born. My biological mother's name is Lita Jocom, and my biological father's name is Donald Baldry. So Lita and Donald, they had me when they were like 20 years old, and Lita's family grew is from Jakarta, Indonesia, and um, they were really wealthy, and but they were just too young to have me at the time. So I was adopted, and who adopted me at birth is Mark Mears and Wanda Mears, who I call mom and dad. So like I was born March 13th, 1990, and um, yeah, I was born March 13th, 1990 in Honolulu. I'm not sure the hospital, but I was born in Honolulu, so I am a U.S. citizen by birth, which is a good thing. And yeah, so March 13th, 1990, Wanda Mears, Mark Mears, mom and dad to me, flew over from Hilo, from this house, um, and they picked daddy up, um, and flew me back to Hilo. I don't know if it was the same day, but um, I think they probably stayed the weekend or something because it's a lot of paperwork to adopt the kid. But anyway, um, yeah, they got me. They brought me home from Honolulu, and I became Wanda Mears and Mark Mears' son from that day forward. Pretty much from March 13th on. And so, who I consider family is the one who raised me, which is the correct way to think about it, I think. And like, so my grandmother on my mom's side, my grandmother on Wanda Mears' side is Sally George, and she's actually still alive. She is a great grandmother now, believe it or not, which is pretty crazy. She's like 98, I think. I really want you to meet her. Anyway, yeah. So Wanda's mom, your great grandmother, my grandmother, is 98, and she is from this town called Trinidad in Colorado. Trinidad is a small town on the border, almost on the border of New Mexico, and it's a town of like 20,000, maybe honestly, maybe like 20,000 now, but when I would visit, I'm pretty sure it was like 15,000 or less. It's really small, and it's like those typical towns that you will see in Western movies across like and like old school Western movies where you just drive through and you would not even know. Like it's real they're cowboys. Cowboys is a thing there. Okay, like um, everyone has like cowboy boots on and a cowboy hat, and they drive a a Tundra truck or I don't whatever. I don't. It's very cowboy esque there, and so anyway, Sally George, my grandmother, your great grandmother, was married to John George, your namesake, actually, and was her husband. So Sally George and John George, um, they were married in Trinidad and had my mother, Wanda Mears, and and a sister. My mom has a sister. Her name is Diane George. And yeah, so my mom, so my mom's side of the family, so Grandma Wanda's side of the family, her grandparents are Sally George, her parents are Sally George and John George, and my mom has one sister, Diane, and yeah, so that's my mom, that's Grandma Wanda's uh, side of the family, and your grandfather, my dad, Mark Mears, is originally from upstate New York, Albany, which is the capital of New York. Um, New York City is not the capital of New York. Albany is. It, yeah, you would think New York City is, but it's not. It's Albany. Anyway, so I like New York. I like the East Coast a lot. I like Colorado too, but I just like the East Coast because of the vibe there. It's like it's really I don't know, East Coasty. Anyway, so my your grandfather, Grandpa Mark. That's the first time I've ever said that. Yeah, Grandpa Mark. Um, it his mom. Your her name was Sue. Sue Sue Mears, and I th- and her husband's name was Jack Mears. I never met him, or if I did, I was so small, I don't remember. But I have a picture of him in my bedroom. I'll show it to you later. But yeah, his name was Jack. So Grandpa Mark's mom and dad, if they were still alive, they would be great grandparents right now. But so Grandpa Mark's parents names are Jack Mears and Sue Mears, and they had my dad Mark, and they had Beth, and Jan and Tom and another Tom, I think. There's one more brother. I can't remember the name. So, but they had a lot of kids. They had like at least five. I think it was five, maybe six. I can't remember the names right now. But yeah, so that's the Mears side. That's where, yeah. So Jack and Sue Mears had like five kids, and which were your grandfather's brothers and sisters. Um, so you got family in New York and Colorado, just from me, from daddy, and yeah. So like, I used to go up there during the summers, sometimes the winter, uh, and I would go to your great grandmother Sue had a house in Albany, but they also had a house which they called the camp, which was a full-on house. They had money, and they put a camp on this lake called Lake George, like your name. But yeah, is right on the lake, and it had like a boat ramp, and there was a boat, of course, and they're super. Uh, that's what people do in the East Coast. um, so yeah, they had a boat, they had a house, and actually, like, what was cool about it when I was like 7, your brother's age, just about, um, was that I could just wake up and go swimming. It was pretty cool for a 6, 7 year old, and yeah, we would do that pretty much every summer. And like, your grandfather Mark would take me hiking up in the hills around Lake George, and um, yeah, we would. Your grandfather would take me hiking a lot. I definitely want to do that with you, but like, um, yeah, I hiked all around those hills in around Lake George. Your dad, I mean, your grandfather was an outdoors person for sure. Um, I just went along for the ride because he was like, "This is the stuff you'll remember," and because like I would be 6 and complaining, "I don't want to go. I just want to play a Game Boy," because that's what kids did back then at the camp. And he's like, no, this is the stuff you remember. We're going. And oddly enough, I do remember it to this day. All that hiking around that your grandfather and I did, and I'm glad I did it. So we'll do stuff like that. I'm not really a hiker, but we can have we'll have some memorable adventures together. Um, yeah, so like I kept on going to that to Albany to visit um your grandparents up your great grandparents up there up until like I was um for 15 was actually the last time, because then your grandmother started to get sick with pancreatitis. Yeah, she passed away from pancreatitis. When I was like 15, she passed away. Yeah, so um, out of your grandfather's side of the family, all of his brothers or sisters are alive. Actually, yeah, all of his brothers and sisters are alive. And um, yeah, so that's dad's side of history, side of the family for you. Dad is uh, anyway. So fast forward from 15 when I was 15 to like um, let's say when I was like 18. Um, Dad moved. My dad, uh, kind of confusing. Grandpa Mark, he really liked. Actually, wait, hold on. Let me back up a little bit. So that's my parents' side of the family is you have relatives over in Colorado. Grandma Wanda's, she has um her mother still living and a sister, and Grandpa Mark has still living five brothers and sisters that live in Albany. Okay, so going from there, Grandpa Wanda and Mark, they got married when Grandma Wanda was like 32 or something like that. And then they stayed together until Daddy was 7 years old, and they separated. Um, so after that, uh, um, after that, your grandfather Mark, he really liked Asia. Like he went and lived in uh, he went after the separation. They well, divorce. Your grand your grandfather went and lived in China for like um, years, like 5, 6 years, maybe longer. Yeah, he lived in China. I think it was Beijing, but your grandfather, he didn't really like big cities like Beijing, but he's so like I know that he was out on the outskirts. You know where he was? He was in Shenyang, China. Shenyang, um, which is up north, I believe, in China, because your grandfather actually remarried a Chinese woman, um, and I and Daddy actually has a step sister who lives in Shenyang, China. She is, I think she's like maybe 2 years younger than me, or 2 years older. But yeah, her name is Bring, and I'm not sure of the last name, but her first name is Bring. Yeah, and she lives in China, and that's all I know. Like I do have contact with her, but um, it's not consistent because the Chinese government has some iffy stuff with internet connections. Anyway, yeah. So technically, you have family in China, but we're not close. So no, but the legalities of it make it so. Anyway, so that whole thing with your grandfather marrying this Chinese woman, I think that worked out for like 2 years or less, unfortunately. And after that, well, I think yeah, after that he came back to Hawaii, which takes us to like 2008, maybe I don't know, maybe 2004, 2004 I think it was, and yeah, so he came back. He spent some time on the Big Island, but uh, he just was always pulled to uh, China. I mean Asia. So after that, he went and lived in Thailand, where he loved Thailand. So like he when what is the capital? I think it's BK, Bangkok, and like yeah, I think it was there, over in BK, and like he lived there for like 3 or 4 years, and then it's another town. It's I can't remember. My biological sister Tian grew up where he spent the last years of his life. But yeah, your grandfather liked Asia. He would always uh, yeah, he liked the temples. He liked to walk around, and he liked to walk around like the. I said he didn't like cities, but he did like the city in Thailand for some reason. And yeah, like he just yeah, and then he passed away in 2012. Yeah, so unfortunately you're not going to be able to meet Grandpa Mark, but um you definitely have to know about him because he was an important person in Daddy's life. um okay, where was I going? So yeah, let me tell you a bit about what your grandparents did for a living. So your grandmother, Grandpa Wanda, mom to me, grandma to you. She after she grew up in Colorado, she went off to college, and she actually surprisingly, when she like was like a freshman, 17, 18 years old, she wanted to be a pianist and actually wanted to go to the Boston Conservatory of Music. However, in the end, she decided that she wanted to pursue medicine and become a doctor. And that, so she kind of like stopped playing piano and started doing that pre-med stuff. And so yeah, she graduated from college, and grandma graduated from college, and she got into medical school. I I think it was I think it was in Boulder, Colorado. I think that's where she went. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure, but yeah, she did. She went to medical school. She did four years of college, and then she went and did 4 years of medical school. And then after that, she knew she really liked kids, and um, when she was in medical school, she went and did her residency in New York. Okay, yeah, this is where your grandmother and grandfather met. They they met. Yeah, so your Grandma Wanda, after med school, she went to do her residency because she wanted to work with kids. So she went and did it up in Albany, or was it New York City? I think it was. Maybe it was two of the places. Wait, let me think. It was in the city. It was in New York City, and yeah, she went to medical school in New York City, and no, she had a job down. Okay, let me start. She went to medical school, Colorado, and did her residency up in um, Albany, but it also was taking place in New York City, if that makes sense. But when she was doing um completing her residency for pediatrics, she she crossed paths with your grandfather, Mark. And um, what your grandfather told me is he's like, oh wow, I thought your grandmother was really cute. Like I can vividly remember him telling me that he thought grandma was cute. um, so you know, she's a hot cookie. uh, she yeah, so they met and they fell in love, and I think this was like the third year med school, I mean residency. um but yeah, your grandmother, before I get on with that, your grandmother actually, she would take the helicopter from the city, New York City, um and fly it up to Canada. They would fly up the river and fly through the mountains to pick up really sick pediatrics, which is kids. They would fly up the river and take, like, from Canada, um, take the sick kids from Canada down to the better hospitals in the city, and so they could work with them better and like save their lives. But yeah, your grandma was pretty hardcore. She would get on a helicopter like at night, fly up the river, which is pretty far, uh, into Canada, pick up sick children, and then fly them back down to the hospital to save their lives. But yeah, there's some stories, good ones. And anyway, getting back to the family stuff. Yeah, so grandpa and grandma met, and then in residency, and then they got married. They got married, and after grandma was done with medical residency, she was a full-fledged doctor, and she wanted to do Doctors Without Borders. So, um, and your grandma and grandpa were very outdoorsy, adventurous. So they decided to move to Tonga, which is a Pacific island, which is way, way far away from New York. Like, seriously, it's really far. Like a third of the world, actually. Anyway, yeah. So they moved to Tonga and lived with the Tonga people. Like, and I'm talking um, like the ghetto part of Tonga. Okay, like they knew what they were getting into. Like, so grandma and grandpa, newly married, okay. I mean, obviously after honeymoon and stuff, but yeah, they moved to Tonga and lived there for like a couple years. I think it was a year and a half, maybe two. And like your grandmother would tell me stories of the kids she had to work on. Like, since it's a third world country, pretty much, like they don't have as good medicine, so like the diseases she saw there of the kids were like atrocious. So grandma has some stories to tell you. um but yeah, they just wanted to, your grandfather and grandma wanted to experience living in um Pacific Islands. And after Tonga, I think they moved to I think um Mexico, or no, Mexico was when your grandmother was in medical school. Um, yeah, that's another story completely. But staying on track, yeah, grandma lived in Mexico City for a while when she was in med school. Crazy. Okay, staying on track. Come on, Dad, stay on track. Your grandfather and your grandmother decided to move to Hawaii. I'm quite sure they had been here before, maybe. But yeah, they decided to move to Hawaii in 1980, or I don't know, 80, 87, 88, a few years before I was born. And yeah, they didn't want to live in a city, uh, like not Honolulu, so they moved to the Big Island, Hilo, and bought this house, this whole thing. And uh, the rest is history, as they say. But like, so yeah, they came here. They came here, and 3 years later, they adopted Daddy in 1990, March 13th, 1990, and then Dad started to grow up, and met your mother, 2018, October 25th. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I just jumped 28 years, but yeah, like seriously, it's pretty interesting, and I think without everything falling into place as it did, um, you wouldn't be here. So I'm thankful to I'm very thankful to all the events, good and bad, that led me to you, and meeting your mother, because you, you guys are the best thing that's ever happened to me. It's the truth. I love you. I love our family. Um, but yeah, like it's interesting, and that's just like the tip of the iceberg. I could go into details for so much stuff, about family and everything, which I will in a later video. But I just wanted to uh, get to the surface of it, so you have at least an idea of Daddy's side of the family. Yeah, yeah. Your mom has an entire history too. They're from Japan. Her her parents are from Japan, and it goes way back. So that's some interesting stuff too. It's like your grandfather could talk to you about uh like samurai and that whole that whole thing. It's interesting. What's really interesting is how everything happened to the point where mommy and daddy met up, like all the events that took place. Like if you could take like a time machine and go back, and like telling you audio telling you the history of daddy and mom's family is really important, so you know where you came from. That's why it's important. And like how you came to be. It's unique to you, and only you, actually. It's good. Anyway, I love you, and I will definitely be talking more about family history in videos to come. But I hope this gives you a better idea of where Daddy's side of the family came from. Okay? So I love you. I love you so much. And mwah. Good night. Love you, son.